Friends, this is the very first poem that I ever composed. It's the story of man and his magnificent wilderness and outdoors. What better way is there to tell this story of you and your outdoors than to present to you God's great outdoors? There is a place on earth for us where sparkling water pours o'er rocks and sands of wilderness. It's called God's great outdoors. Here is the home of fighting fish, dens where the bruin snores, huge mountain crests where eagles seek to share God's great outdoors. Yes, here is where the wild game roam, where gypsy bird life soars, where the sun, the wind, rain, and snow meet in God's great outdoors. Here's where the din of raging storms is hushed by tranquil shores, where life and death are next of kin, mixed in God's great outdoors. Here, then, is where the ages passed, to open wide the doors through which a growing horde of men seek out God's great outdoors. Some come to play, some come to stay, escaping harried shores, just living in the world we live, outside God's great outdoors. For here all men find peace of mind, a refuge from the wars, equal place in the charts of life, kept in God's great outdoors. Now let us ponder here a while the wonder of all scores, kept by the mighty referee who runs God's great outdoors. Man made the means to hasten time. Man made polluted sores. Man made the dust that seals the doom of this God's great outdoors. Man hewed away the wilderness. Man raped its wondrous stores. Man stole the clearness of its streams. Man damned God's great outdoors. Yet man is still bequeathed with time to heed what he abhors, so that his children yet to come may grace God's great outdoors. Friends, no matter whether we're working, fishing, or hunting, all of us wonder. And so I composed this poem of some of the thoughts that I wonder. I wonder sometime what would be in store for mankind's destiny if God's great wisdom were to ban all boundaries as laid out by man. I wonder, too, if this were so and man were free to come and go without the plagues of race or creed, would he then overcome his greed? I wonder how we'd keep the scores of any useless, wasteful wars. If all the lands would be but one, there'd be no borders lost or won. I wonder if the world would hide their love of life and humble pride if they lived out beyond the glens instead of concrete jungle dens. I wonder when the wild goose soars across the skies to distant shores, why he's not stopped and brought to cause for breaking immigration laws. I wonder, as the wild game roam across the lands to find a home, why they're not held to face the vex of different border custom checks. I wonder if our youth would yell to break the laws and then rebel if all their shouts and taunts and screams were spent on bubbling mountain streams. I wonder who would be the ones to rape and rob and flash the guns if mankind broke the shackled chains of jealous, selfish, mortal gains. I wonder, could we live in peace if all the threats and fears would cease, and free men everywhere would stand to just hold out a helping hand. I wonder what each life would yield if men spent more time far afield, if they were shown when just a child the warmth and comfort of the wild. I wonder all this day and night, without the answers yet in sight. Thus it's been scribed that all may read, ponder and wonder, then take heed. Friends, I was flying across the country and looking out the plane window, and the thoughts came to me how much we're missing. And so to present those thoughts to you, here's my poem, Flying By. We wing our way up yonder 5-6 miles above the ground. With awesome speed we wander, here and there and all around. We move so fast we're missing all the wonders and the worth of nature softly kissing all the wildlife on the earth. Huge mountains pass like pebbles, great lakes like limpid pools, for speed has made us rebels and reactionary fools. We do not see the glisten of a sparkling waterfall. No longer can we listen to the loon's poor lonesome call. We lost the blissful treasure of just drifting on a lake. We do not feel the pleasure of a surging motor's wake. We miss the thrill of camping miles above the earthling's bound. Existence is revamping when we fly at speeds of sound. We dream about the fishing far below beyond the plain, but wake up only wishing, 'cause we're strapped up in the plane. We're flying by, not talking of each simple little thing 'twas ours to have out walking in the summer or the spring. We've passed the joy of giving in our haste to come and go. We've lost the love of living as we used to years ago. When asking with persuasion, what's the answer? What's the sum? To figure this equation, one should heed what now must come. When time makes life go faster, and when space makes Earth grow small, we can't but know the master formed the wonder of it all. Friends, while this poem is not about the outdoors, it is about the thoughts that go through the mind of an outdoorsman when he's drifting on a quiet, sparkling lake. And therefore, I'd like to present to you Boomerangs of Destiny. And it came to pass from the first man's birth that the ages would test his right on earth, that though he be black, red, yellow, or white, all men evolved in this true test of right. 'Twas a test of man's word, his thoughts, his creed, or how by his actions he'd sow his seed, whether he'd live by the word of the Lord rather than worship the might of the sword. Time has been rendered, the answer is here. Man has failed miserably year after year. Kill or be killed was the curse of his caste, ever enlarging the sins of his past. As time passed on, man's knowledge and skill invented new tools to plunder and kill. First came the club, then the sword, then the bow, thence came the rifles and cannon we know. Brother killed brother and friend would kill friend. As each era passed, it started again. God saw the carnage, the hate, and the lust, and said, there must now come a holocaust. So the herbs of hell and the brimstone shale were mixed and then milled by the devil's flail, then belched up in flames to the earth's rock crust, that man may make bombs of atomic dust. Then he spread them to mankind far and near, to be triggered by greed, distrust, and fear. 'Cause if man can't live as he once did then, his time for testing was now at an end. One touch of a switch and one rocket's roar, then all life on earth would be here no more. For as it would hurl to its final state, 10 more would return to retaliate. Oh, is there still time, or is it too late to still the switches and beset our fate? Such fools that we are, that we cannot see God's final boomerangs of destiny. Well, friends, we can't leave the campers and the tenters out of these poems. And in thinking of them, why, I composed this poem, and it's called Keep Trav'lin. When you're breezing down the highway and the miles keep rolling by, keep traveling, friend, and don't forget, it's not ours to question why. 'Cause your camper's right behind you, and the whole world lies ahead. So like I just said, keep traveling. We're a long time lying dead. Yes, I know the dust-rimmed prairies will stretch on both far and wide to make the going really rough for your family by your side. And the hot, dry, sultry desert will bring pangs of slow regret. But that's the time when one finds out that he hasn't started yet. 'Cause the potholes of the flatland will soon change and bring instead a mirage of changing landscape with green foothills up ahead. Then the foothills turn to canyons, twisting rocky mountain holes, like a wall to split the stalwart from the less courageous souls. That's the time you keep on going. Show them all you can compete. Just beyond there lies the sunshine of a wilderness retreat. Here you'll camp, then start exploring just how much more can be seen as the woods, the lakes, and wildlife fill the ever-changing scene. Here in technicolor splendor, Mother Nature will unfold all the beauties of the rainbow as she serves your pot of gold. So it is in just plain living, as our song of life is sung. If we could but just keep traveling, would that ever keep us young? Well, friends, there's a humorous side to being an outdoorsman, like most of you are, and I feel that this poem that I composed will give you the feeling that should have a little humor, and therefore I'd like to present When Ya. When you feel let down just short of your goal and you'd like to hide or crawl in a hole, well, here's a prescription to rest your soul: a boat, a lake, and a stout fishing pole. When you start to act like a great big heel 'cause you're so unlucky in every deal, Well, friend, you can change your luck with the feel of a boat, a lake, a rod, and a reel. When you get to the age of aching feet, when wine and dames are no longer a treat, there's one way left to make life complete. That's a gun, some guys, a range, and some skeet. When you feel like your poor sick head will break from that hangover's pounding, gnawing ache, this formula then should jar you awake. Mix a boat, some fish, warm beer, and a lake. When you ever fold aces back to back, 'cause your buddy just drew the case third jack. Console yourself, man, don't think of the stack. Just think of that moose with the trophy rack. When you feel the old ticker start to pound, 'cause you're so keyed up you can't be unwound, then neighbor, here's one tip that's really sound. Take a boat, a lake, and just drift around. When you think for sure you'll lose your mind, in the fall when your job seems so unkind, here's one tip I know will make you unwind. Get a boat, a lake, some ducks, and a blind. When you stand transfixed with a glassy stare, hypnotized by the old battle axe glare, break loose, my good man, and escape that fare. Head for the bush, and the devil may care. When you feel at times like hiding your face, 'cause you live so slow you can't stand the pace, well, buddy, here's one way to solve your case. Find a boat, a lake, and an outboard race. When you plan your fishing week after week, but never go 'cause your paycheck's so bleak, I'd say you're up the proverbial creek without that oar in a boat that'll leak. When you think that this tale will never end, thus causing your patience and nerves to bend, how right you are, because friend will tell friend this story of kooks all over again. Friends, a lot of you remember my poem, God's Great Outdoors, and the last stanza is where so many people wrote in that hits them. Their children are the ones that they think about. And thus I got the inspiration for this poem, and so that you can understand what I mean by your children, I'd like to present A Sigh in the Wind. From an empty rise on the barren ground, the sob of a boy and his wailing hound could be heard in the breezes soft and clear through a wilderness left from yesteryear. 'Twas a saddened sigh of a future child in a futile quest of the woods and the wild. Then a teardrop fell as he gazed up high, and in barely a whisper asked us why. Why is the green foliage no longer here? What caused all the flowers to disappear? Who soured the meadows so that they reek? Why is the topsoil so barren and bleak? Why are the rivers so murky and cold? Why are the lake shores fermented with mold? Why does the sunshine seem musty and dark? Where is the call of the loon and the lark? Where are the deer and the bear and the moose? What killed the pheasant, the duck, and the goose? Where are the rabbits my dad used to shoot? Where are the turtles, the frogs, and the coot? Why don't the pike and the pickerel spawn? Where have the bass and the muskie all gone? Why is the game and the songbird's glow gone like the buffalo of long ago? Where are the timbers that stood strong and stout? Where is the tall grass I had read about? Why, when I gaze over each hill and dale, all that remains is the rock and the shale? You who were living when time was benign, selfishly castrated that which was mine. Never a thought to the waters and sod, never a thought to the bounties of God. Good conservation could not fill your need, Reckless abandon was part of your creed. Pestilence, fire, pollution, and gore were the plagues that you lived with, brought on by war. This was to be a great land of the free, home of the brave, to be passed on to me. This was my heritage, proud and divine. Look good and see what was actually mine. Thus ever so softly the sobs passed on. The breeze in the wilderness now was gone. All that remains for both you and for me is our steadfast pledge that this will not be. Friends, a lot of us always think about living a little longer, and I got the message, so I'd like to pass it on to you in this poem called Free Time. When the good Lord made his ledger where he'd post man's stay on earth, every hour of each man's life was allotted by its worth. For a fact, there are no deductions for most of the time we spend rushing to live the way we do to reach our untimely end. There are no deductions by lying or loopholes to cheat our way. Our fame and our wealth can't help us or buy us an extra day. The only blessed exemption that's open to us and free is one bequest the good Lord made for the likes of you and me. We've so much time marked in the book, regardless of our wishing. The only time allowed to us is that time we spend fishing. Yes, the hours we spend fishing not only are free from strife, but also are deducted from our given span of life. They're ours to have for the taking, a bonus where we don't pay, a just reward for the plucky who take some time off for play. Free time to bask in the pleasure of nature's wondrous scheme. Free time to drift or troll around on a lazy lake or stream. Free time to sniff the aroma that the smoke wafts from the shore with pungent smells of frying fish. Could anyone ask for more? Which brings us to one basic fact that all of us need so much. If we went fishing every day, we could live 80 and such. Friends, all of us look back and think of what life was in the yesteryear before our times. So that you may know how the outdoor was, I bring you Times That Was. The time was when a man could go from Arctic Sea to Mexico and never pass a dirty stream that was not part of nature's scheme. Each sparkling lake was pure and clean. No garbage marred the tranquil scene. Huge trees stood strong and stout and straight, so thick 'twas hard to penetrate. Then, too, he'd live off of the land where virgin foliage was at hand. The earth and soil where he'd reside was smothered not with pesticide. The air he breathed would never choke with smog or soot or dirty smoke. This gave him strength and gave him health beyond all realms of mortal wealth. A man just caught the fish he'd eat and leave the rest to not deplete the very lives which one by one would bring him so much food and fun. The forest teemed with buffalo herds, with upland game and flocks of birds. The deer, the moose, the elk, the bear richly abounded everywhere. These man did kill, but just for food, not so's to ease a lustful mood, for well he knew what must be done to share God's gifts with everyone. There were no cars, there were no trains. Man's highways were but wooded lanes. There were no factories, mines, or mills to gut the flower-covered hills. There were no forest fires, ghosts of shadowed, blackened, ugly posts. For all made sure when breaking camp, they left the embers cold and damp. Those were days when the golden rule was used as mankind's strongest tool. But time and tide washed these away with waste and thoughtless, slow decay. Perhaps man's progress changed his creed to moral rust and selfish greed, and left what there remains today, since times that was have passed away. Friends, during the last war, when I was overseas, I had written a poem, and although I didn't finish it, I did finish it with the present day. And while it's not of the outdoors, it is about a soldier's cross. The hearts of men become as shafts of steel. No warmth or softness penetrates therein. Slow disintegration of the soul, a soldier's cross. A sunset stripped of all its crimson veil by memories that once were filled with love. For now the scarlet rays reflect in blood a soldier's cross. The joyous, gleeful shouts of kids at play have long been stilled by destined hands of fate, replaced by fearful cries to seek and kill a soldier's cross. The gay, flamboyant stride of carefree feet have long since passed beyond the realm of time. One hears the measured steps of pounding boots, a soldier's cross. The nimble hands that on pianos raced no longer bring forth chords of mellow song, for now they guide the spitting sighs of death, a soldier's cross. The family love that once was theirs to have has now been stripped of all eternal warmth, replaced by Satan's naked joust of pain, a soldier's cross. Reality has now replaced the text. The nightmare is no longer just a dream. Today it is a scream, a choking cry, a soldier's cross. And yet into these flaming jaws of hell, free men have charged with courage unsurpassed, that for this freedom they may proudly bear a soldier's cross. The musty sands of ages blowing on, but that these men shall not have died in vain. 'Tis ours to see that history buries not a soldier's cross. Well, friends, while some of my poems are generalities and some are about the fishermen and that, we certainly couldn't go through without a salute to the hunter. Therefore, I present to you a true hunter. When the trail seems almost endless and the going's really rough, a true hunter keeps on moving, because believe me, friends, he's tough. When the winds of sultry flatlands mix each labored breath with dust, A true hunter keeps on going, knowing full well that he must. When the gnarled, twisting foliage blocks each jungle path anew, a true hunter keeps on hacking, darned assured he's coming through. When the red-rimmed mountain canyons bar the way with walls of rock, a true hunter keeps on climbing, 'cause he comes from stalwart stock. When the water holes are empty and the shores just parched dry cracks, a true hunter keeps on looking, confident he'll find new tracks. When the veldt is void of wildlife and the woodlands are the same, a true hunter keeps on hunting. Well, he knows he'll find his game. When the game is in the lorry and the drums beat far and wide, a true hunter shuns the glory. He just takes it in his stride. When the hunt is finally over and the trophies line the den, a true hunter soon gets restless till it's time to go again. Thus the moral of this story holds no place for whys or buts. A true hunter sure is crazy, but believe me, he's got guts. Friends, so many of us put off our hunting or our fishing, or for that matter, anything we're going to do till tomorrow. And soon tomorrow becomes today. And so that you might better understand today, I would like to present that poem, Today. Today is but the twilight of yesterday, a myriad of reflections. It is the soft beginning of an end to nothingness. Today is but a minute passage of time, a molecule of the ages. It is the patter of one tiny raindrop as to the ocean. Today is but a span in tragic fantasy of violence unchecked, a fragment in the reincarnation of history. Today is the past, present, and the future in mixed prolification. It can recall, be, and prophesy with no restraint. Today is but an hourglass of fate, a measured destiny. It is a mystic wheel of fortune for those who live. Today is but a hallowed, lonely epitaph, a reverent thought, valued by the equation of the souls of those who passed. Today is but a word in man's vocabulary, a mute description of time. It is an unspent vacuum of space with unknown density. Today is a symbol of desire or frustration, a benign bequest. Do with it then as you may, for it will not return. Friends, everybody calls a fisherman goofy. And just so you can better understand the fisherman, I wrote this poem to present to you, "'Twas the Night Before Fishing." 'Twas the night before fishing, when toast after toast finally left no one sober, not even the host. The whole camp was in turmoil, the gear was piled deep, and the dishes from dinner were stacked in a heap. And the poker chips jingled, and the cards flashed bright to the bleary-eyed players glued there for the night. Of course, the stories were flying, complete with damned lies, like the fish that Jake mentioned, he landed on flies, or the sexy achievement Slim made with that chick that he savorly bragged of with hick after hick. Like the one when Mike scrubbed the results from his scare when he ran to the outhouse and into a bear, or the one of the muskie Max told with a gloat, that leaped high for his spinner and fell in the boat. Yes, the stories were flying, the gang was unwound as their pent-up emotions spilled out all around. Then a loon called out loudly from far in the lake, and in sudden awareness it jarred us awake. Each man of us now knew it was time to turn in, for tomorrow we'd battle the surge of the fin. Just the stillness of darkness remained to make clear 'twas the night before fishing for another long year.